Getting beyond fragmented knowledge. So I want to explain, and this is also covered in the report, the National Skills Coalition report. But there's this concept of fragmented knowledge around digital literacy and the use of devices. And essentially, there are a lot of learners because of the ubiquity involved with using a smartphone and in some cases a tablet, who actually know how to go to their favorite social media site, maybe to post a picture or record themselves on Instagram. But when it comes to actually using the technology to complete an online application or to create a resume and post that, or actually just as basic as using a mouse, that's where this disconnect often is. And so when SMEs, researchers, educators use this term, fragmented knowledge, they're basically addressing this particular disconnect where, yes, individuals might have a smartphone, but that doesn't necessarily equate to being able to use a keyboard, to apply the technology to solve problems that might be necessary to solve, or solutions that are needed for a given job. And so the tips here, I'm just going to touch on 4. There are others, and then I'm going to bring in some examples with what we do with the computers one click at a time, not only with the workbook, but the online components. But essentially, contextualizing the learning is very important. And what is meant by that, to the extent that you all are connecting digital literacy, and I would actually advise you to do so with what's going on in the world of work, students can have a more real-world appreciation for why the use of computers is needed. So just going back, for example, to the working in a fast food restaurant example. So if there is safety training that's being delivered and maybe some sort of simulation that's being done via goggles and virtual reality, the ability to bring these examples into the classroom will just help your learners understand, okay, why it's important. Because yes, maybe some learners might relate virtual reality to just video game playing, which is okay, but bridging that connection to what really is going on in modern day, the modern day world of work. And so the second bullet point about integrating computer applications, this is really key, particularly when we talk about Microsoft Office, or even just Google Docs, Google Sheets, because this is just all part and parcel now of a lot of entry-level jobs. So when I say integrate computer applications, I'm sure a lot of you have either dealt with Zoom, so the whole video conferencing, or Google Meets, or even maybe some of you are using Teams or some other application. But the more that you can, in your teaching, integrate the use of the technology, again, for real world applications, even with learning, because we know distance learning, given the pandemic, is a big thing, as well as remote learning, but integrating computer applications in the work. So having your students use Microsoft Word to solve problems, to create a resume, or Google Docs is very important for basically just reinforcing the use and the application of technology. And then I would encourage you all to involve your students in problem solving. So to the extent a lot of students that you might have are working adults, so they're getting instruction while they're working, press them to think about how the job they might have or some task at home could be improved by automating or using technology. So if we just think about I'm just trying to bring in an example. So if you have a worker, let's say, that's in hospitality, and maybe we'll just stick with hospitality, who might be working at a hotel, and to the extent they realize some days they don't have work and other days they might have work. To the extent that they can think about, oh, well, I like to be busy when I'm at work. Well, how can you predict, outside of a pandemic happening, what trends or what occupancy might look like, being exposed to, for example, to knowledge that would show past trends, so that you might be able to predict future trends around, the months or the days or events, to be able to better plan staffing, let's say, at a hotel. So just basic things. That's not the best example, but that was the first thing that came to my mind. But basic things of integrating and allowing them to just really think about the work that they're doing now and how that might change, and how technology might even help that. Because the fact of the matter is that yes, automation is happening, and a lot of the routine tasks that are associated with jobs might disappear, but humans will still be needed. Humans will still be needed. So in the warehouses, there will be humans that will need to understand what the robots are doing, and working in coordination with the robots if they are present. In healthcare, to the extent that, there's telemedicine and lots of different applications in healthcare, whether it's diagnostic tools, et cetera, the extent to just have them stretch. I know they have a lot on their minds, and there's a lot that you all are trying to instill with them with literacy and other things, but just having them think about the world that they live in and how things can be made better if they do encounter various pain points, I think is a great exercise to just engage them in sort of changes that are happening and helping them to think outside of the box. And then I would say to be creative with curriculum, and to the extent that you're creating your own, or you're using various curricula from different providers, I think that's really important, particularly where it's not just, okay, memorize this or do this, but applying the skills learned to really solve problems that might exist in everyday life. And I'm going to give you 3 examples in a minute of some things that we do that can be helpful, particularly for those of you who may not be aware of the online components.